What's up, YouTube? This is True Raw for TV. I have some sad news to pass on to you all. One of the great coaches of all time, not just NBA history, but of all time, has passed on. Basketball Hall of Famer Don Nelson died today at the age of 86. His family announced today. Nelson was a three-time NBA champion as a player with the Boston Celtics before transitioning to coaching and becoming a three-time NBA Coach of the Year. Statement released by the family. On Sunday morning, our beloved husband, dad, grandfather, and great-grandfather, Don Nelson, peacefully went to be with the Lord, surrounded by his loving family. Throughout his last week, friends and family encircled him with love, sharing the blessing of his friendship and revisiting treasured memories. And uh, Don Nelson, as the article states, uh, played for the Boston Celtics, where he won 3 NBA championships. And actually, he won 5 NBA championships, not 3. He played from 1965 to 1976, winning 5 titles: 1966, 1968, 1969, and then again in 1974 and 1976. His number 19 jersey is retired by the team, hanging in the TD Garden rafters. But Don Nelson really made his mark as a head coach in the NBA after his retirement, coaching the Milwaukee Bucks, the New York Knicks, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Golden State Warriors. For 12 years, he held the NBA all-time record for most wins by a head coach with 1,333 when he passed Lenny Wilkens in 2010 before being surpassed by Greg Popovich in 2022. He was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 2012. Nelson began his playing career as a standout at Iowa before being drafted in the third round of the 1962 draft by the Chicago Zephyrs, who are now the Washington Wizards. A small forward, he made a huge impact on the Celtics dynasty's success during the 60s and 70s and was the rare elite player to go on to have just as successful a coaching career, I would argue even greater. He was known for implementing Nelly Ball, which was, in many ways, a precursor of small ball and what we see today. It was Don Nelson or Marquise Johnson, depending upon what source you want to hear or believe, that introduced the point forward. Although you can make the argument that Rick Barry was essentially point forward at times with the Golden State Warriors, Marquise Johnson is the first one to really, truly establish himself as the facilitator of the offense from the point guard position. From the small forward position. And it was Marquise Johnson under Don Nelson where that position got its start. And Don Nelson's teams were known for their run and gun offense style. But what made those Milwaukee Bucks so great was that they were also an elite defensive team. And as I said before, you may have heard me say this time and time and time again, the Milwaukee Bucks are probably the best team in NBA history, definitely of the 80s, but probably in NBA history, not to go to an NBA Finals. If it wasn't for, Bird's super teams, if it wasn't for Dr. J's earlier 80s super teams with multiple Hall of Famers, the Milwaukee Bucks would have probably went to a couple of NBA Finals. Not saying they would have beaten, Magic's Lakers, but they definitely would have been in the finals a couple times. But Don Nelson, of course, had his tenures with other teams. Most notably, I would say outside of Milwaukee, probably with the Dallas Mavericks for a stretch. He did, of course, spend time with Golden State, who didn't have as much success. He and, Chris Mullin infamously had their beefs with each other. But all in all, Don Nelson was a very successful all-time coach. And when you look at his resume, it's very impressive. He coached for about 34 years. But as a player, as I said, five-time NBA champion, number 19, retired by the Boston Celtics, third-team All-American, 1962, three-time NBA Coach of the Year, two-time NBA All-Star Game head coach, considered a top 10 coach in NBA history back in 1998. That was expanded to top 15 coach in NBA history. I think that list came out a couple of years ago in 2022. And he won a Chuck Daly Lifetime Achievement Award just last year. That may have been his last major public appearance. I don't. As far as speculation on what happened, as far as him passing away, I don't want to speculate. I have noticed that in that last appearance, Don Nelson looked very emaciated. So I don't want to speculate on what the issue was, but he lived to be 86 years of age, so that's a very full life. His NBA coaching record is 1,335 victories versus 1,063 defeats. And he did win gold with the FIBA World Championship team in 1994. I believe he was the head coach of that squad. And Don Nelson went to, give me 1 second here. Don Nelson made the playoffs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 times in his career. 18 times in his career, he made the playoffs, or his teams qualified for the playoffs. So that's a remarkable accomplishment. And he also coached some all time great players. Those players include guys like Sidney Moncrief, Marquise Johnson, and he also coached, of course, the Run TMC teams with Tim Hardaway. I almost forgot to mention that. Tim Hardaway, Mitch Richmond, and Chris Mullin. He had that one stint with the Knicks, which wasn't very successful. If I recall correctly, he retired mid-season and was replaced by Jeff Van Gundy. So I think that's how he got his start. And then, of course, he had another. His last stint was with the Golden State Warriors. That's what the team. I think he coached that We Believe team that upsetted Dirk Nowitzki and the Dallas Mavericks in the first round, 2007. He coached from 1997 to 2005 Dallas Mavericks. So I mean, he also coached Dirk Nowitzki himself, a young Steve Nash. Uh, I remember Don Nelson coached that Mavericks team. They were pretty bad in 97, 98, but I think they won like 11-71. But they had one game where they came back and beat the Chicago Bulls. I'll never forget it. I think that team had like Cedric Ceballos, Dennis Scott. It was just a weird motley crew of NBA players at that time. But you know, sometimes Don has some talent on his teams, and sometimes I think he, you know, coached some teams that had talent, but just things just didn't work out. Chemistry issues, um, personnel issues, whatever. But rest in peace, Don Nelson. Tell me what you guys think.